All the world's a game, and all men and women merely gamers. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts. But the Bard is the greatest. That's right, folks, we have patch 8 now, which gives us the Bard class, and I am so excited for this video. I'm excited in the first place because it's been a while since we've had a new patch with a new class, so it feels great to get back into the swing of things. But also, I'm really just excited about the Bard class in general because it's such an iconic class for 5th edition, and it's such a powerful class. I mean, the things Bards can do in this edition of D&D, well, let's get into it. Bards are a support class with a emphasis also on controlling, so mostly support, secondary controlling. Let's start, as we always do, with their base stats and proficiencies. Bards have the 1/8 hit point progression, which, as I've said in many videos, is the vanilla hit point progression. For saving throws, they have Dexterity and Charisma, and this is probably the worst saving throw combination in the game. See, your starting saving throw proficiencies always work in the same way. You get a major 3 saving throw and a minor 3 saving throw. The major 3 saving throws are Dexterity, Constitution, and Wisdom, which correspond to older ways of doing saving throws where Dexterity was your reflex, Wisdom affected your will, and Constitution your fortitude save. Now, of the major 3, Dexterity is the worst. On a full caster like the Bard, you really want Constitution, because that's a saving throw that affects your concentration saves, allowing you to get the most out of your spells. Wisdom is a close second because some of the most potent status effects in the game target your Wisdom saving throw. Dexterity really trails behind the others. Dexterity saving throws will usually be used to resist a damaging spell, where you will resist half of its damage, which is good, but not the same as, say, Wisdom, where you are resisting a absolutely crippling status effect, and you're rolling for a chance to resist it altogether, completely invalidate the spellcast. So for that reason, Dexterity saving throw is the worst of the major 3. Charisma is just the worst saving throw in the game. As far as I know, there's only one effect in the entire game that targets Charisma. That's the Bane spell, which is a potent spell, but enemies will cast it, but having a saving throw proficiency just to resist one spell, it's not good. So the saving throw proficiencies for Bards are disappointing. It's okay though, because everything else is absolutely amazing, including weapons and armor. Bards get light armor proficiency, simple weapon proficiency, plus a portfolio of unique martial weapons: hand crossbow, longsword, rapier, short sword. Light armor is good on a full caster. Of course, medium armor would be better, but we're not going to be unhappy with light armor. For weapons, getting hand crossbows in particular is really great. Longswords, rapier, short swords, these are all great weapons. Rapiers and short swords in particular are the best finesse weapons that you get access to in the game. So as a melee or a range damage dealer, the Bard keeps up, which is really good for a character that is also getting a ton of spells. Speaking of spells, let's go to that now. We'll start with cantrips. As you can see, Bards get their own unique list of cantrips, which is mostly the same as the wizard or the sorcerer's list of cantrips, but without any of the attack ones. Cantrips like Firebolt, Ray of Frost, Chill Touch, they're missing from this list. Instead, Bards get their own unique attack cantrip, which is Vicious Mockery. Vicious Mockery is a save attack cantrip that it targets the Wisdom saving throw and does 1d4 psychic damage, making it the worst attack cantrip for damage in the entire game. I mean, it is just awful. Any save attack cantrip is always going to be worse for damage because save cantrips cannot crit, and they're just inherently less accurate anyways. Attacking Wisdom is kind of rough. I find that Wisdom saving throws tend to be high on a lot of enemies. And then doing 1d4 damage, the worst damage in the game, just awful. However, it's not really about dealing damage. This spell's actually about mitigating damage. Because if your target fails their wisdom saving throw, besides the damage, they also get disadvantage on their next attack roll, which is a pretty potent accuracy debuff for an attack roll. All of that said, it's still a saving throw to resist, which means it's not reliable. And you know what else mitigates damage? Just killing enemies. So I find that it's way better just to dual wield hand crossbows on your bard and kill enemies rather than using Vicious Mockery. I'd probably rank it a B tier spell. That's my initial impression of it. I find I don't cast it that often. In fact, I'd probably recommend against even taking it, but it just feels wrong to play a bard without it. And the insults that Lyrian have written are pretty funny, so if that's your kind of thing, go for it, guys. The world's your oyster. What else? Of these other cantrips, we've talked about them in other videos or in my spell tier list. Light is pretty good, Minor Illusion can be pretty good, Mage Hand can help you solve some puzzles in the game. Really, it's all out of combat utility for these spells, so pick whichever ones you like. I find that Friends and Vicious Mockery are what I go for, just for the role-playing aspects. What about first level spells? The Bard's first level spell list is absolutely fantastic, combining some of the best hits of other spell lists in the game. For example, from the Arcane spell list, they have Tasha's Hideous Laughter and Sleep. Now, I'm not going to go over these spells again. We've talked about them many times in our Wizard review, Sorcerer review, on my spell tier list on my website. I will just say that these are S tier spells that absolutely define the strategy of Baldur's Gate 3. Having a character in your party who can cast them, fantastic. From the Cleric spell tier list, they also get access to Healing Word, probably the most efficient action economy spell in the game. The only reason this isn't the best spell in the game, in my opinion, is that it's very reactive. You only need to use it when an ally's been downed, which, with proactive strategies, you can avoid altogether. Still, no matter how good at the game you are, you'll still roll some ones, you'll still get crit by the enemy. In those situations, you have Healing Word for that. It's just so useful to have a character that carries it. Actually, with access to the spell, it's worth considering whether the Bard can straight up replace the Cleric altogether. And honestly, at this point in the game, I think they can. You can get Healing Word from Bards. The other two spells that you want from a Cleric are Bless and Create Water. Bless you can get on your Wizard from a scroll. Bless scrolls aren't super common, but you will find them. And it doesn't even hurt the Wizard that much to cast it, because what would they be casting otherwise? Sleep? Tasha's? Your Bard's bringing more casts of those spells anyway, so now your Wizard actually has the spell slots free to cast Bless in fights. All that leaves is Create Water. Not having it does suck. However, there are other ways to get the same effect as Create Water without actually casting the spell. For example, there's a staff in the game that gives you 1 Create Water cast per long rest. You can buy it fairly cheap in the Druid's Grove very early in the game. There are also vials of water in the game, which you can throw to get the same effect as Create Water, although in a smaller area, and they are consumables. But you get the idea. The fact that a Bard and a Wizard combo can do most of the things that you want a Cleric for, and the fact that Bard synergize so well with classes like Fighters or Warlocks, it's worth actually passing on Shadowheart on your Bard runs and taking either Will or Lae'zel. The feature that Bards get that synergize so well with Will and Lae'zel, you actually get at level 2, so we'll talk about it then. I'm just mentioning it now. So besides these awesome spells from the Wizard and the Cleric spell list, Bards also get some unique spells that are new to the game. Let's talk about those. First, Heroism. Heroism is a single target ally or self buff. You cast it on a target, and for 10 turns, or as long as you maintain concentration, that target can no longer be frightened and gains 5 temporary hit points each turn. 5 temp hit points each turn is a lot if you're taking damage every turn. Think about it. In 3 turns of damage, you've mitigated 15 damage, or effectively given yourself 15 hit points. And the more turns a fight goes, the more temporary hit points you're getting. Hit points are the most reliable and best way of increasing your durability in 5th edition, so I really like Heroism. I think it's worth casting in several situations. I'd probably give it an A tier, but I'm going to save my actual official ranking of the spell till I've had more time to test it. The other new spell that bards get is Dissonant Whispers. Technically, it's not new. You could get access to it on Great Old One Pact Warlocks, but so few people played that pact because it's really unfinished in the state of the game right now. Dissonant Whispers is a single target debuff and damage spell. If the target fails a Wisdom saving throw, they take 3d6 psychic damage, half as much if they pass it, and they also become frightened. Frightened used to be one of the best conditions of the game, but now it's just kind of okay. And the damage is just kind of okay. Really, the spell's fine, but I just don't like saving throw targeting spells for damage. You can't crit with them. Honestly, I would pass on this spell because there's so many other amazing spells on this spell list that you want. But still, if you like to use it, it is good. Okay, we've covered the base stats and proficiencies, we've covered spells. Right, there is still Bardic Inspiration, which is kind of the signature feature that bards get. Really defines their class. This is a buff that you can cast on a bonus action to an ally. When you cast it, that ally can add 1d6 to their next attack roll, ability check, or saving throw. Technically, it's their choice, but it's really honestly difficult to choose just with the way that the reaction system works in the game right now. But it kind of doesn't matter because how I do it is I cast it and I turn off ability check and saving throw and just use it for attack rolls, which it's much easier to control it with that. Why for attack rolls? Bardic Inspiration synergizes so well with the Great Weapon Master feat, which we've covered many times. With Great Weapon Master, you take a negative to your accuracy and gain a massive boost to your damage. Bardic Inspiration, when used on attack rolls, offsets that subtraction to your accuracy. And it stacks with Bless. Such a fantastic ability for buffing your Great Weapon Master Striker. And if you have a bard, if you're playing as a bard, it's worth taking a Great Weapon Master Striker just for this synergy. The only real weakness of Bardic Inspiration is you're not getting that many casts. You get your Charisma ability modifier casts per long rest of this feature, which should be around 3 to 4, 5 depending on your build, 5 max depending on your build. But for some reason, in my runs, this has been bugged. I can't get it to go past 3 no matter what my charisma is. I'm sure that bug will be fixed soon. Even at max 5, it's still not a lot of casts per long rest, and that's a shame. Still though, it's a good ability. Fantastic ability if you use it with Great Weapon Master Strikers. And that's all there is to cover at level 1. Now let's go take a look at their features at level 2. At level 2, bards get 2 additional features, as well as learning a new level 1 spell. The first feature is Jack of all trades. This allows you to add half of your proficiency bonus, rounded down, to ability checks that you are not proficient in. It's interesting, it gives you a small bonus to all those skills that you're not really focused on. Mostly this is out of combat utility, but it's pretty cool. The really big feature that you get at level 2 is this, Song of Rest. This allows you to play a song, which counts as a short rest. You can use it once per long rest. That's right, it is giving you an additional short rest per long rest, which synergizes insanely well with all of those classes that are really short rest dependent. The big two are, of course, the Battlemaster Fighter and any kind of Warlock, where their main attack resource refreshes on a short rest. And you can consider Song of Rest as giving them a 33% increase to those resources that they cast per short rest. It's way more Warlock spell casts, it's way more combat maneuvers, it's just so incredibly strong right now. So on my Bard runs, it's really painful to not take both Will and Lae'zel, and that's why I was recommending earlier that you actually leave Shadowheart out of this party. I never thought I'd say it, but Shadowheart isn't the best character to synergize with your Bard. That's level 2. Now let's go to level 3. At level 3, the Bard base class gets the last of its features in early access, and that is Skill Expertise and your second level spells. Let's start with Skill Expertise. Expertise is a boost to skills that you are proficient in, allowing you to double up your proficiency bonus on any skill checks with that skill. Most skills, of course, offer only out-of-combat utility, but some offer in-combat utility, and those are the ones I recommend as prime candidates to become an expert in. Classic in-combat skills are skills like athletics or acrobatics for making or resisting shoves, and then, of course, stealth. Those are the ones I recommend, but of course, you can pick whatever skills you like that fit your image of your bard. That's skill expertise. Now let's look at second level spells. The bard's second level spell list is also really good and combines some of the best hits from other classes again. From the wizard spell list, it offers amazing spells like Cloud of Daggers or Hold Person. From the cleric spell list, spells like Lesser Restoration or Silence. And then from the druid spell list, spells like Heat Metal and Enhance Ability. All of these are amazing spells. I've talked about them in those other videos. Let's not talk about them again. Instead, let's look at the spells that are unique to the bard and thus new to the game. First, Phantasmal Force. This is a save, single target save damage spell. It targets the intelligence save, which is actually pretty neat. A lot of enemies have really low intelligence, especially beast enemies like the Bule or the Bugbear, which means you can actually reliably hit this spell. But what does the spell actually do? Well, it does 1d6 psychic damage on the initial cast. And then, at the start of its turn, that enemy will also take additional 1d6 damage for the next 10 turns, or as long as you maintain concentration. But the damage type will actually alter. It always redoes the damage type of the last damage it took. What does that mean? Well, typically not a lot, except we can combine this with cold and lightning attacks to actually double subsequent damage ticks to wet targets. That's the big use of it. And when you use it for that, it is pretty good. It's still not that great in my opinion because 1d6 isn't a lot of damage. It's going to take a lot of ticks before it really starts to pay off as far as damage numbers go. And it's way better to just have all that damage up front because you're canceling enemy turns. So the important thing about doing damage is killing enemies before they can act, and Phantasmal Force isn't great for that. So it's interesting. It has its uses because it targets intelligence, and you can use it to double up on cold and lightning damage, but in any other situation, it's not really worth the second level spell slot in my opinion. Another spell that's new to the game is Calm Emotions. This is an area of effect team buff. All allies in the area become immune to the Charmed or Frightened condition. These two conditions can be really annoying, so having it is neat. It's a good reactive spell. It's good at canceling those conditions in fights where you suffer them, and for most fights, not really worth taking. Of course, I recommend the S tier spells that we've talked about many times before. Cloud of Daggers, Hold Person, Heat Metal. It's really awesome having all of these spells on one character. And of course, Upcasting Sleep is a great use of a second level spell as well. So that is all of the base features of the Bard class. So now let's talk about how we rank it. I give the Bard base class an S tier, and I could not possibly give it anything else. I mean, this class has so many amazing features, from its spell list to Bardic Inspiration to Song of Rest. It completely warps the balance of the game. It's absolutely worth building around such an amazing base class. It almost rivals the Wizard in my opinion. It may even rival the Wizard. I'll have to think about it some more. It'll definitely beat out the Wizard base class once they get rid of the Wizard's ability to learn any spell in the game right now. But yeah, not having a Bard, now that it's in the game, not having a Bard is just painful. They are so good. So S tier all the way for the Bard. Now let's look at its subclasses. We have two options to choose from so far in Early Access. That is College of Lore and College of Valor. Let's get to them. Both of the subclasses for the Bard are going to give you 2 new features to add on to the base class features. Let's start with College of Lore. The College of Lore gives you 3 new skills and the Cutting Words feature. Now, you should be able to choose what 3 skills you want, but for some reason, the way Larian's implemented it, they choose them for you. It's Sleight of Hand, Intimidation, and Arcana. Neat, I guess, but yeah, it's not even that great of a feature to begin with, and the fact that you can't even choose your new skills, it's really a shame. It doesn't really do anything for me, either in combat utility or in roleplay value. It's just kind of a nothing feature right now, which is, yeah, that sucks. Of course, the other thing it gives you is Cutting Words. Cutting Words allows you to use your Bardic Inspiration to affect enemies. Instead of buffing your allies, buffing their attack rolls, ability checks, and saving throws, Cutting Words applies a 1d6 penalty, a debuff, to enemy attack rolls, ability checks, and damage dealt until the start of your next turn. So it's giving them a 1d6 penalty to an attack roll, and then if they still happen to hit that attack roll, it'll give them a 1d6 penalty to damage, which is kind of nice, but I greatly prefer to use my Bardic Inspiration to buff my allies. So I find I don't use Cutting Words that often. It's rare that I think Cutting Words is better than buffing an ally that you can control and that you can build around. So for that reason, I find the College of Lore to be an absolute dud. I'm tempted to give it an RP tier ranking until they fix some of these features. But for now, I'm just going to give it a C ranking. We'll leave it at that. If, though, you select the College of Valor, you will get 3 new weapon and armor proficiencies instead of skills, and the Combat Inspiration feature. First, let's talk about the weapon and armor proficiencies. You get medium armor, shield, and martial weapon proficiency, which is basically all that you want as far as weapon and armor proficiencies go in early access right now. It gives you the equivalent armor and weapon proficiencies of a barbarian, a full and awesome martial class. So this is really good. It's going to give you way more AC, which allows you to avoid hits and maintain concentration. And if there's a martial weapon in the game that you didn't already have access to, like, say, Greatsword, you can get access to that too. Now, I don't think this is enough to make you a full-on, tanky, durable striker. I just think of this as making you more durable and better able to avoid attacks so that you can maintain concentration for longer. And that is still really, really nice. Combat Inspiration also buffs your Bardic Inspiration. It now allows you to use that 1d6 bonus to a weapon damage roll, or you can get a flat +4 bonus to your armor class for 1 attack. For me, the use of this is just about using it for damage. That's really all I use it for. Why? Because this is a game where you can easily and reliably guarantee crits. And when you use Combat Inspiration to augment your damage on a crit, you are doubling the damage dice, effectively doubling the value of your inspiration dice over a fight. Now, originally I thought we would be able to use this for spells, allowing us to double it in more situations with lightning and cold damage spells that we can use against wet targets. However, it sadly does not work that way. You can only use it to add damage on your weapon attacks, but still it's really good for that purpose. Overall, it's really just a minor buff because Bardic Inspiration was good enough on its own when it was augmenting attack rolls, but still technically a buff, which really makes the College of Valor outshine the College of Lore. I give the College of Valor a B tier ranking. These are nice features for sure, but they're really just playing a minor supportive role to the amazing features you get from the Bard base class. And that's it for the Bard class review. Thanks so much for watching, folks. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I'll catch you next time.